Hi there, I'm the Utopian Trainer. This is a channel for those people who are trying to create a better society, whether as political activists, whether as NGO workers, whether as pedagogues, or whether simply as individually organized people. If you like this video, then click on here, subscribe to this YouTube channel and also on the notification bell. This is an introductory video looking at the issue of populism and what this means for utopia. Now, the word populism in inverted commas, why that? The word populism, populist, there's a bit of a buzzword at the moment, kind of considered to be a bad thing. It's kind of assumed that the people who are using it are the people who are not populist themselves. In the Institute for Global Change, used to be fronted by Tony Blair, it says on the website that we want to push back against the destructive approach of populism. Now, there's a very interesting article by Peter C. Baker in the liberal newspaper, The Guardian, saying that like there were no real witches in Salem, or do they say Salem in the States? Salem. There are no real populists. Let's make them more European. No witches were found during the witch persecution, and maybe this is the same thing that's happening with populism. I mean, Roger Cohen, writing in the New York Times, says that populism is sloppy to the point of meaningless when you come to define it. He goes on to say, it can be applied to all voters who have decided that mainstream political parties have done nothing for the static incomes or disappearing jobs. You think the word populism, populist has been attached to, you think like right-wing parties or right-wing politicians like Trump, but even like left-wing, Syriza, who in the end implemented austerity, or even a party who doesn't want to be left or right, Podemos, in Spain. It's a very, who defines exactly what populism is? Academics are not in unanimity on this. Now, Peter C. Baker notes this and says that the current preoccupation with the theme of populism represents, here comes the quote, a persistent failure of governments to resemble a credible vision of shared prosperity and security in the post-manufacturing era. Something is afoot with liberal democracies. We are seeing this, we are witnessing this. All kinds of bad things are happening. We are seeing a lack of a real attempt to deal with climate change because of various complex reasons. So, a criticism of populism is that it creates this artificial us and them. Thing is, there are some us's, there are some thems. You're looking at what Oxfam said, 2018, a report on inequalities. They said the 1% richest people in the world own 82% of the wealth created in that year. To talk of elites is, depending on which elites you're actually talking about, but it can be the right thing to do. We're thinking of like the 1%. We're thinking of that people like Rupert Murdoch own media in many different countries, and through this implements and spreads a certain ideology, neoliberal ideology. This is something that's actually happening. So what Moffat and Lachau point out is that while before it can be thought, okay, politics isn't about conflict, conflict is an inescapable and defining feature of political life. There are us's, there are thems. Now, my own view is that the preoccupation with populism shows a suspicion of collective identity. This is very neoliberal. This is very individualistic. It preoccupation, it's just showing like the zeitgeist of centrism. Started in 1990s, Blair, Schroeder, Clinton, a kind of third way, a kind of we don't want to be left or right kind of thing. Now Moffat calls this non-politics. And that what we're actually seeing now in these people considered to be populist is actually a return to real politics, where there are actually conflicts happening. But not quite as simple as that, of course, because the party is considered to be politics. I mean, the time when the word populists was attached to political parties was in the 1990s, in which the Austrian Freedom Party was set up, Front National in France, beginning to increase their votes there, with this artificial dividing up of into groups. I mean, all groups are actually artificial. They're not empirically, biologically existing. Yeah, nation states, nations. Anyway, the real French, the real Austrians. So there are people who are certainly saying, okay, look at these gays, look at these migrants, look at these refugees. This is certainly a feature of modern political life, that many parties, this kind of terminology, polarizing words, are actually being used. Yeah? So, there's that issue. Another thing I find with populism, this is my own view now, it wasn't said in this article, was that there's also like a suspicion of Keynesianism, whatever that word is, whereby if a government says, all right, we're going to be spending more money on something, this is considered to be a bad thing. In fact, this was something that worked for decades. Then it stopped working, of course, but the alternative, I mean, we can talk about states can invest money in doing things like creating green technology, creating jobs, fighting climate change, things like that. But sometimes I find is that this talk of like empty kind of rhetoric, this kind of promises being made. I mean, politicians of all kind of colours are making all kinds of promises. Who's to define who's right and who's wrong with this? I don't want to be all like really relativist on this. There are certain policies which are better than other policies. Let's actually discuss the political policies. Let's discuss about the economic policies and try to work out if they're viable or not, without actually just throwing out the word populist. Because people are voting for these parties considered to be populist, and it's the group I'm going to be working with now. So basically in this series of videos, we're going to be looking at the parties and people who will be having anti-migrant rhetoric, anti-women's rights rhetoric, and actually policies. And working out main examples. Trump, peace, the Tories, to some degree Brexit, although Brexit is more complicated than that. France Reconnaissance, previously Front National. So we're going to be looking at these parties, these issues, these countries, and working out why are people voting for them? Why are we seeing an increase in this happening? It is only by understanding this that we can come to the clear point of what Peter Baker in his article was saying, is that what kind of liberal democracy do we want to live in? And how can we combine that liberal democracy with, this is my question now, with the populace, with the people and their desire for shared prosperity and security? What are the issues that are defining people's impressions, that are making them vote for parties that are having anti-migrant, anti-women's rights, homophobic, anti-Semitic, etc., etc.? How did I start that sentence? Policies, parties. Anyway. So, therefore, this is what this series of video is going to be dealing with. So, if this has piqued your interest, then please click on the subscribe button on the notification bell. Feel free to share this. It would make my day. So a big shout out to, this is a very young YouTube channel, big shout out to my subscribers. Both of them. Jesteś świetną osobą, życzę ci miłego dnia. And the other one, ja, du bist auch toll. Wir sollten miteinander arbeiten. Yeah. Anyway, have a nice day everyone. Bye.